Survey organizers say any score above 50 suggests growth. A score below that suggests decline. The survey covers Iowa, Minnesota, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. Governor Reynolds says the nation's southern border needs to be secure, but she says it cannot be done on the backs of Iowa farmers. Reynolds says she hopes Trump rethinks imposing new tariffs on Mexico, or the new trade agreement is endangered.
We're at a critical time right now, and it's time sensitive. And I was so happy when we finally got the negotiation done to create the USMCA. And now we need Congress to ratify it.
President Trump's top trade negotiators sent a formal letter to Congress on Thursday, signaling the Trump administration will formally submit the USMCA to Congress within 30 days. Officials in Canada took a formal step last week toward ratifying the agreement before the president threatened new tariffs on Mexico, the other party to the deal. Democratic White House hopeful Cory Booker is rolling out his Iowa Steering Committee, a team of activists and operatives that features a party power broker who played a key role in each of Bill and Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns in the state. Power broker Jerry Crawford is one of 10 Iowa activists, operatives, and elected officials who plan to provide strategic advice and operational support to the New Jersey U.S. Senator's 2020 campaign as part of his Iowa Steering Committee being rolled out today. The group includes 4 of the previously unannounced endorsers, former Iowa State House Minority Leader Representatives Mark Smith of Marshalltown and City Council members Dale Todd of Cedar Rapids, Ajir Saleh of Iowa City, and Bruce Teague of Iowa City. 17 Democratic presidential candidates will be in Iowa at the same time in the same place coming up on Sunday. OK Henderson with more on this report.
Former Vice President and perceived frontrunner Joe Biden will not be at the Iowa Democratic Party's Hall of Fame dinner in Cedar Rapids June 9th, but most of the competitors for the party's 2020 presidential nomination will be. During the month of May, Iowans had their pick of more than 150 solo events featuring a candidate in the Democratic field. Mary Horseman of Des Moines drove to Oskaloosa to see one of the 4 candidates she's considering. Horseman says she's looking for a fresh face and a few other characteristics.
Being able to be who you authentically are and not just because you're running.
She's in no hurry to make a final decision, though.
I don't know. We got a long ways to go.
The Iowa caucuses are 8 months from today. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
A woman living illegally in Wright County has been sentenced to 2 months in federal prison for illegally obtaining welfare.
46-year-old Cleo Gomez was living in Clarion and pleaded guilty to theft of U.S. government funds. She admitted that when she applied for food stamps, she failed to report her husband's income. Her husband, Melvin Barrios, is also in the country illegally and was then working under an alias using someone else's social security number. Court records show Gomez received nearly $20,000 in overpayment of food stamps after failing to report her husband's income. She was ordered to pay that money back in addition to serving the prison time. Her husband was sentenced in March to 6 months in federal prison after being found guilty of 3 counts of unlawful use of an identification document and 4 counts of misuse of a social security number. Radio Iowa, I'm Dar Danielson.
And we're now a week into what are considered the 100 deadliest days to be on the roads in Iowa nationwide. Rose White, a spokeswoman with AAA Iowa, says the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day is when the number of deadly crashes involving teen drivers historically rise.
It's because teens are out of school, have more free time, and they drive more. And nearly 3,500 people have been killed in crashes involving teen drivers during the 100 deadliest days for the 5-year period running 2013 through 2017.
While there's much discussion about the dangers of distracted driving, the latest research finds distracted driving is the 3rd leading cause of deadly crashes involving teen drivers. The top 2 are speeding and alcohol.
Half of the teen drivers reported speeding on residential streets in the past 30 days, and nearly 40% said they sped on freeways. And despite the fact that teens cannot legally consume alcohol, 1 in 6 teen drivers involved in fatal crashes tested positive for alcohol.
While teens may make mistakes when learning to drive, White says it's important to continue educating them about safety so they can avoid reckless behaviors and put themselves and others at risk on the road. That's a look at local news. For the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher reporting.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 2:38. First of all, in the weather, isolated showers and thunderstorms. Then thunderstorms after 5 o'clock. It'll be mostly cloudy today with a high of 76. More rain overnight, resulting in a flood warning until June the 5th. Rain tomorrow. Boy, God, have I read this weather forecast somewhere before? Rain tomorrow with a high of 82. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 84. Thursday, chance of rain. Friday, chance of rain. Saturday, chance of rain with highs in the upper 70s. Sunday, mostly sunny with a high of 77. The only day in the near future when we'll have no precipitation forecast. It's 69 degrees under a mostly cloudy sky right now. AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge Obituaries, brought to you this hour by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Douglas Harmon has passed away. Doug Harmon's funeral will be tomorrow. Visitation from 4 to 6, followed by the service at 6 in the evening. That's for Doug Harmon. Billy Brown has died. William A. Brown, 66 years old, has passed away. There will be a memorial service at 11 o'clock in the morning Friday here in town for William A. Brown. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. It's 2:40. Pastor Austin Hill is in the studio. We'll talk with him in just a moment. It's 69 degrees with a look at the closing market report. Here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. July corn down 2 3/4 at 424 1/4. September down 2 1/4 at 433 3/4. December down 2 at 441 3/4. March down 3/4 at 450 3/4. July soybeans closed up 1 1/4 cents at 879. August up 1 1/4 at 885 3/4. September up 1 1/4 at 893. November up 1 1/2 at 906 1/4. July wheat closed up 16 3/4 at 519 3/4. Soybean meal down 80 cents a ton at 320.50. June live cattle down 170 at 106.77. August down 27 at 102.80. August feeder cattle up 37 cents at 133.50. September up a nickel at 134.12. June lean hogs down 15 cents at 81.57. July down 140 at 84.52. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm a teacher, a coach, a dad, a husband, and I live with HIV. There was a time in my life when I was scared people would find out about my diagnosis and be scared of me. Then I found out I'm not alone. There are over 3,000 Iowans living with HIV. How we take care of ourselves and how we manage our care are two of the most important ways we can live our best lives. My diagnosis doesn't define or scare me. I'm a person just like everyone else. And that clarity helps me teach my kids that we're all just people. I have more support than I could ever have imagined thanks to Ryan White funding through the Iowa Department of Public Health. I qualified for medication and medical care, financial help, transportation, housing, and counseling. And now I'm living with HIV, not dying from it. Why wait? Reach out for testing and care services at stophiviowa.org.
When it comes to being your best, who's in your healthcare support circle? Family? Friends? Coaches? What if there was a way to strengthen that circle of care? Mercy One now has a 20,000-person support team all across Iowa, with more locations and more highly rated specialty services than any health network in the region. Now that you can add all this care to your circle, why wouldn't you? Mercy One, your best life, our one purpose.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I'm the mayor of Manville. We're talking with Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church about progressive Christianity. Now, that implies that there is such a thing as a conservative Christianity, and I don't want anybody to think that I would advocate for a return to the days when women were supposed to be barefoot and pregnant or something, or in a subservient position. I never knew why men of my father's generation preferred women like that at all. And believe me, in my life, the women I've been close to were not like that. And I certainly, in my parents, and I have to give credit primarily to my father, for being appalled at the idea of racial discrimination.
When I think, to use those terms at their most literal sense, a conservative Christian is one who is interested in preserving kind of the theological traditions.
I've always described myself as a traditionalist conservative.
Mm-hmm.
When I say conservative, somebody thinks I'm some Donald Trump slave or some doggone thing, or I'm a capitalist, somebody who worships capitalism as if it were a religion. Some do. I don't. Every economic system has its flaws, and we should look to them.
Well, and all of those things so often become conflated too.
Yes,
They become loaded terms. What does it mean to be a conservative? You get a political conservative or a theological conservative or kind of a moral conservative,
nationalist conservative.
Yeah.
All those sorts of things.
And all that gets kind of lumped in there. Whereas I think when we're speaking about religion, when we're speaking about our faith, it's kind of more of the sense of how much are you willing to question or challenge sort of what has traditionally been the practice of the church, which would be more of a progressive outlook. And the traditionalist or the conservative is kind of maintaining or preserving the beliefs and structures that have been there historically.
All right. And I think I think we need to schedule a discussion on what traditional Christianity looks like.
Sure, yeah.
Because there are merits to it.
Mm-hmm.
As I alluded to before we went on the news break, if we start diluting our faith too much, it means nothing.
Sure.
What do we stand for? Love? That's nice.
Well, there are lots of people who stand for love, and
I'm for love. I'm for happiness. Yeah.
Well, and I guess we can dig into that a little bit right now. Even when we think about what is our bedrock, theologically speaking, as Christians, and I would say it's in the name Christ. Jesus is the foundation for our faith. Jesus.
What does that mean?
Well, so Jesus, as revealed to us in Scripture, Jesus is God in the flesh. We believe that in Jesus, Christ came and dwelt with us in those 33 years.
So what's the good news of that?
So the good news there is a lot of different things. First of all, it's that we aren't alone, that there is this God who is willing to go to any length that we might know him, to meet us where we are.
By virtue of the crucifixion.
Yeah. Well, and to even become a human being. I mean, that would be like, getting down at our level. And I've said this in a sermon a couple times. What I've noticed as a parent is I like the parenting method that I call couch parenting, where I like to sit on the couch and kind of yell at my kids and tell them to do what I want them to do. And
I was all about that.
So long as I don't have to get up off the couch, then we're in business. But, as you know, especially as a parent of young children, you can't do everything from the couch. You've got to get down off the couch. My youngest, Everett, he loves building Legos, and he often wants me to build Legos with them. So I've got to get down onto the floor. And, I just turned 35 yesterday. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You're right up there, I'll tell you.
So my body doesn't quite work like it did when I was 7. And, to spend a couple hours on the floor, and parts of your body fall asleep that used to not fall asleep.
Well, we'll stand by with a defibrillator at all times.
Exactly. So, all that is to say that, even as parents, we know a little bit about what it's like to get down on the level of our children and to meet them where they are. And what we see in Christ is that God does that for us. So that's
traditional Christians.
So a traditional Christian would uphold that Jesus is the center of our faith.
Yes, he would. I believe a progressive Christian would too, if they are a genuine Christian.
So to go back to your question of, well, if we challenge some of these things in the Bible, then what do we have left? I would say Jesus is always the litmus test.
Mm-hmm.
That helps us, get out of the having to not eat shellfish on certain days of the week, or, whatever some of those Old Testament passages that you could get really hung up on. If you wanted to, you could say, well, the Bible says, don't mismatch fabrics and wear more than one fabric at the same time.
I go to many colors.
But when we look at the person of Jesus as the ultimate revelation of God's character, that helps us sift through some of those different parts of the Bible.
Well, describe God's character then. What does God, as expressed through Jesus Christ, expect of us? What values does he expect us to uphold? What laws does he expect us to obey?
Yeah.
Love, of course, I got it.
Well, but I'd say more than that, it's sacrifice. I mean, Jesus says that if any of you wants to be great, you must first of all be a slave. Whoever wants to be first will be last. And that's in the context of all of his followers. They're bickering over who's going to get to sit next to him in heaven. They say I think James and John's mother comes to Jesus and says, "Will you do me a favor?" And Jesus is kind of like, "Okay, what?" And she says, "When you return to your kingdom, have a special place for my two sons at your right and left hand." And then, of course, all the other disciples hear that. They're like, "Well, what about us? If they're at the right and left, where are we going to sit?" And so then Jesus, in the midst of their squabbling, he stops all of that and says, "Guys, you've got this all wrong. Like, my kingdom isn't about who's going to be great, but it's going to be about who sacrifices, who's willing to give of themselves sacrificially."
Boy, that sounds fun.
I know. And I'd say probably most concrete would be in Philippians 2, verses 3 through something like 11, where the Apostle Paul says, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. And he goes on and says, who, even though he was God, he did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing. He took on the form of a servant and became obedient even to death, even death on a cross. So according to Paul, if we're to follow Jesus's example, it's that we empty ourselves, that we surrender our power on behalf of others, that we serve others. And that's probably, evidenced also in what Jesus would say is the greatest commandment. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. But that's not like the way we live doesn't matter and just do whatever you want love. That's I'm going to sacrifice everything for you kind of a love.
But people don't do that, Pastor. The people in your church don't.
I don't.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a great ideal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are those in your church and every church in this town or county or area who are doing the best they can with that idea.
Yeah.
But they'll be the first to tell you, "Well, I'm not doing that."
Well,
I'm not doing that.
Now, I think that's what we still are called to strive for. And thank goodness then we have the sacrificial love of Jesus, who covers our sin and pays for our wrongdoing or our lack of ability to live righteously entirely. But just because none of us are able to make that standard doesn't mean we throw the standard out. I think that's what we still strive toward.
Sure, certainly.
So I think that's kind of, broadly speaking, that's kind of the litmus test we use when we come to the Bible. Because as we've made clear, even just over the last couple months of talking about this, we can't take every word in the Bible and say that is God's commandment for us today.
Of course not. The Bible is open to interpretation. Apparently, the U.S. Constitution and Iowa Constitution are very fluid as well.
Well, and that's where you get whole different churches that start based on how they interpret different parts of the Bible. So I recognize that what I'm saying is not universally, going to be accepted, in any church anywhere. But ultimately, we don't worship a book. We don't worship the Bible. We worship God. And God is most fully and completely revealed to us in the person of Jesus Christ. But to say that's a theological statement. I'm leaning on the theology and the history of all of those who've gone before us to come up with that. Now, if Father Patrick were here, he could say, well, and I have the Catholic Church's teachings to lean on because that's Orthodox.
He would say that, yeah.
But for you or I who are a Protestant, we don't have a church leader that we can say, well, we just do what they say to do. And so we say, well, we go back to the Bible. And that's where it gets murky, because then, well, whose understanding of the Bible is it that we're placing our trust in? Father Patrick would say, well, it's the Catholic's understanding of the Bible because that's authoritative. Once you lose that authority, then it's kind of like all bets are off. Then it's whoever can make the best argument about their approach to the Bible. And that's how we kind of get into all of these questions, is because some people can make better arguments than others.
We're going to miss Father Babe. We're going to miss him. I ask him questions like this, and he's much more, I don't know, he's much more he has church history, rich church history.
Yeah.
To back up most of his insights and ideas.
He kind of said, well, this is what happened at this point, therefore this is what we think today.
And this is Saint Francis or Saint whoever. And this was their experience that relates to our day today, and this is why we should follow that insight.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but Saint Francis, Thomas Aquinas, terrific Christians, men of great insight. They were still men.
I think the church worldwide is still responding to what I would call rationalism or the Enlightenment and the scientific method, and that everything can be
absolutely,
universally provable. And so the way that Catholics responded to that, because now you've got a new contender on the scene. You've got the scientific method that says prove it.
Right.
It's not about mystery and faith anymore. It's about proving a concept and reproducing that proof. So I think the Catholic Church's response to that was increasing its emphasis on the authority of the Pope. And then the Protestants' response to that was increasing its emphasis on the authority of the Bible. That's where you get biblical inerrancy. The idea that every word of the Bible is perfect, that hasn't been around for more than, at most, probably like 500 years.
You ever been down to North Carolina? Because that idea is still alive and well.
Well, certainly. But if you go back 1,000 years ago, most of the people couldn't even read the Bible.
That's right, Dave. And it was a major no-no for anyone outside the church even to read the Bible, if they could read.
The only way that you really were to understand the Bible was through the authority of the church.
Exactly.
And so I think...
And what was that about? That was about power.
Yeah. And because of the Enlightenment, because of modernism, the power of the church has been diluted. And so Christians all over the world have still been struggling to kind of figure out how to, where to place that power. And how to have that power.
All right. Pastor Austin Hill has been with us. We could certainly carry this on for another 20 minutes, but we're out of time. So I do want to thank you for being here as always.
My pleasure. We'll do it again next week.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
We stand for people, progress and pride. Iowa Farm Bureau's by your side.
Farming is challenging. With agriculture in a prolonged slump, are you finding yourself stuck between falling commodity prices, high input costs, and a volatile trade market? How can you improve farm profitability? Iowa Farm Bureau's 2019 Economic Summit will address these issues and more during this one-day event. Packed with national leading experts, you'll get an in-depth look at overall farm economic prospects and discuss important issues like crop and livestock outlooks, land value trends, and alternate income sources from hemp, crop insurance, and the use of blockchain in meat production. Plus, you'll discover new ways technology can be used to improve profits on your farm. Reduce your risk and register today. Join us Friday, June 28th at the Marriott Hotel in downtown Des Moines. Pre-registration is $30 for Farm Bureau members and $150 for non-members. To register, visit iowafarmbureau.com.
Do you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes? The IRS has special programs in place that can eliminate or reduce your tax debt by thousands of dollars. With a call to ATA, you can stop the wage garnishments, levies, and tax liens now. The IRS is currently accepting reduced settlements and other favorable programs. You may qualify for substantial savings, so get the help you need. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, call ATA to see if you qualify. 800-805-1055. That's 800-805-1055. 800-805-1055.
Is your dad a Trump supporter? It's Father's Day, and whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump is our 45th president and is making history in our lifetime. Noble Gold has the perfect gift for Dad, a minted exclusive collector's piece, the Trump Freedom Coin. One side depicts an image of Donald J. Trump, while the other side lists all his major achievements. At less than $40 for each silver coin, this makes a perfect gift for dads as well as grads. This commemorative limited edition 1-ounce silver coin is the only presidential Trump coin made up of 99.9% silver, not silver plating, and IRA approved. As the price of silver rises, so will the value of these coins. These silver coins, priced at less than $40, are a perfect gift for anyone. Act now. Go to TrumpCoin2020.com and use code AMERICA to get $5 off now. That's TrumpCoin2020.com. It's the perfect gift for your dad, the presidential Trump coin. Just go to TrumpCoin2020.com and use code AMERICA to get $5 off now. TrumpCoin2020.com, code AMERICA.
Yeah, I'll have to get a hold of my son and make sure I get one of those Trump coin deals for Father's Day. Maybe not. No, I think it'd be better just go to a Mexican restaurant for Father's Day. All right. Flood warnings through June 5th. A lot of rain this week. I tell you, we're stuck in a groove here. We're just stuck in a groove of weather that sucks and keeps right on sucking. Since about mid-January, when we had all that brutal cold and snow, we just haven't been able to get out of it. Anyway, we'll be talking with the Iowa corn growers in the next hour, and I hope they have some good news. It's 3 o'clock, 69 degrees. You're listening to AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
I'm Dave Ramsey. Join me every Monday through Friday afternoon from 5 to 8 p.m. on AM 1400 KVFD.
A toast from the Queen, Elisa Brady, Fox News.
Visits by American presidents always remind us of the close and long-standing friendship between the United Kingdom and the United States.
Queen Elizabeth moments ago as President Trump and the First Lady capped their first day of their first state visit to the UK with a banquet at Buckingham Palace. Tomorrow, a large protest expected.
We've been speaking to a number who have said that they dislike President Trump. They believe some of his policies are divisive. They dislike the way that he perhaps spoke about women in the past. And one key issue that many people are speaking about is climate. We've heard many people say that they are unhappy with President Trump having pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. And that giant blimp, which we saw last year, will be back. Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, gave again express permission for that to be flown here during the protest tomorrow. That has been considered a major affront to him.
Fox's Benjamin Hall, but supporters of the president are rallying too. A main focus of this trip, marking 75 years since the D-Day invasion that marked the beginning of the end of World War II. The Justice Department gets a green light to target a tech giant. No investigation yet, but sources tell Reuters the Justice Department's antitrust division now has jurisdiction for a potential probe of Google.
They're going to be looking at possibly the search engines and how they promote links. They will also be looking at advertising. But it's not just all about Google. We know across the globe, regulators have been cracking down because the pace of these big technologies has grown so quickly that it's hard to keep track as to what they're doing with our data, how they may be taking advantage of us. We know the EU has fined Google just over the past few years several billions of dollars. So now it's starting to trickle to the U.S.
Fox Business Network's Christina Partsinevelos. Facebook, Apple, and Amazon have also been under scrutiny. Tech shares leading a sell-off on the NASDAQ, down more than 1%. But the Dow finishes up 7 points. This is Fox News.
All right, welcome to F-150 Radio. Call from Georgia. Chad, what's shaking in Macon?
I know the F-150 kicks butt and takes names.
Like how the high-strength military-grade aluminum alloy F-150 thrashes the competition with best-in-class towing and torque?
Mm-hmm, not surprised. Totally saw that coming.
Chad, how do you know so much about F-150 beating the competition?
I drive the competition. Got a 10-year lease.
Kind of embarrassing, huh?
Maybe I shouldn't advertise that fact on a national talk radio show.
Good call. The Ford F-150. It doesn't just raise the bar, it is the bar.
Best-in-class claims with properly configured vehicles. Class is full-size pickups under 8,500 pounds GVWR based on Ford segmentation.
Now get a 2019 F-150 with 0% financing for 72 months, only at your Ford dealer. Not all buyers will qualify for Ford credit financing. 0% APR financing for 72 months at $13.89 per month per thousand finance, regardless of down payment. Program number 21040 on 2019 Ford F-150. Not available on Raptor. Residency restrictions apply. Take new retail delivery from an authorized Ford dealer stock by 7/1/19. See dealer for qualifications and complete details.
Case against the accused gunman in a massacre at a Maryland newspaper moves forward.
A pretrial hearing has been scheduled for later this month for the man charged with opening fire at the Capital Gazette, killing 5 in June 2018. Attorneys for Jared Ramos met privately with the judge and prosecutors today and will be back in court for the June 25th hearing. Ramos, who is charged with first-degree murder, is set to go on trial in November. The meeting happened on the same day that the museum in Washington, D.C. paid tribute to journalists who were killed while reporting the news. That included the Capital Gazette victims. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Restaurant chain Chipotle says the Trump administration's threatened tariffs on Mexican products could add $15 million to its costs this year. This based in part on the company's claims that it uses 450,000 avocados per day. The tariffs are supposed to kick in next week unless Mexico does more to help on immigration. Government researchers find our food contaminated with substantial levels of a man-made compound.
They're widely used nonstick compounds dubbed forever chemicals because they take so long to degrade, and now we're learning the FDA's first broad testing of food for them has turned up substantial levels in some grocery store meats, seafoods, even chocolate cake, which had more than 250 times federal guidelines for PFAS in drinking water. The Food and Drug Administration calling the contamination not likely to be a human health concern, though federal toxicologists say some compounds pose a higher health risk than previously thought. Those results from 2017 samplings presented at a science conference in Finland last week. Lillian Wu, Fox News.
Recapping the mixed finish on Wall Street, the Dow ends slightly higher, up about 5 points as the numbers settle, but the S&P and the Nasdaq lower. For the Nasdaq, a sell-off into so-called correction territory. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With this look at local news from the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher reporting. The Fort Dodge City Council is meeting in a special session this evening to discuss the possible placement of a stainless steel sculpture at the southeast corner of First Avenue South and 9th Street in the downtown area. According to documents included in tonight's council agenda, Dan Perry of Waterloo says a sculpture will consist of interwoven forms symbolizing gypsum. A central column representing growth will be mounted on the base and be illuminated with color-changing LED lights at night. A ribbon that wraps around the column represents the Des Moines River. The sculpture, which has an estimated price tag of $70,000, would, if approved, be placed on land that the city purchased earlier this year with the concept of future development. And a report says a May survey of business supply managers suggests economic growth will slow over the next 3 to 6 months in 9 Midwest and Plain states. The report issued Monday says the Mid-America Business Conditions Index dropped to 54.3 last month from 55.9 in April. The figure was 58.2 in March. Creighton University economist Ernie Goss oversees the survey and says tariffs and flooding have harmed several states. The survey results are compounded to a collection of indexes ranging from 0 to 100. Survey organizers say any score above 50 suggests growth. A score below that suggests decline. The survey covers Iowa, Minnesota, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. Governor Reynolds says the nation's southern border needs to be secure, but she says it cannot be done on the backs of Iowa farmers. Reynolds says she hopes Trump rethinks imposing new tariffs on Mexico, or the new trade agreement is endangered.
You know, we're at a critical time right now, and it's time sensitive. And I was so happy when we finally got the negotiation done to create the USMCA. And now we need Congress to ratify.
President Trump's top trade negotiator sent a formal letter to Congress on Thursday, signaling the Trump administration will formally submit the USMCA to Congress within 30 days. Officials in Canada took a formal step last week toward ratifying the agreement before the president threatened new tariffs on Mexico, the other party to the deal. Democratic White House hopeful Cory Booker is rolling out his Iowa Steering Committee, a team of activists and operatives that features a party power broker who played a key role in each of Bill and Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns in the state. Power broker Jerry Crawford is one of 10 Iowa activists, operatives, and elected officials who plan to provide strategic advice and operational support to the New Jersey U.S. Senator's 2020 campaign.
Is that you,
as
Wayne?
part of his Iowa Steering
it is.
Committee being
All
rolled
right,
out today.
you can hang on
The group
for 4
includes
minutes or
4 of
call
the
back in
previously
4 minutes.
unannounced
We'll run a little
endorsers,
longer.
former Iowa State House Minority Leader Representatives Mark Smith of
All right.
Marshalltown and City Council members Dale Todd of Cedar Rapids, Ajir Saleh of Iowa City, and Bruce Teague of Iowa City. 17 Democratic presidential candidates will be in Iowa at the same time in the same place coming up on Sunday. OK Henderson with more in this report.
Former Vice President and perceived frontrunner Joe Biden will not be at the Iowa Democratic Party's Hall of Fame dinner in Cedar Rapids June 9th, but most of the competitors for the party's 2020 presidential nomination will be. During the month of May, Iowans had their pick of more than 150 solo events featuring a candidate in the Democratic field. Mary Horseman of Des Moines drove to Oskaloosa to see one of the 4 candidates she's considering. Horseman says she's looking for a fresh face and a few other characteristics.
Being able to be who you authentically are and not just because you're running.
She's in no hurry to make a final decision, though.
I don't know. We got a long ways to go.
The Iowa caucuses are 8 months from today. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
A woman living illegally in Wright County has been sentenced to 2 months in federal prison for illegally obtaining welfare.
46-year-old Cleo Gomez was living in Clarion and pleaded guilty to theft of U.S. government funds. She admitted that when she applied for food stamps, she failed to report her husband's income. Her husband, Melvin Barrios, is also in the country illegally and was working under an alias using someone else's social security number. Court records show Gomez received nearly $20,000 in overpayment of food stamps after failing to report her husband's income. She was ordered to pay that money back in addition to serving the prison time. Her husband was sentenced in March to 6 months in federal prison after being found guilty of 3 counts of unlawful use of an identification document and 4 counts of misuse of a social security number. Radio Iowa, I'm Dar Danielson.
And we're now a week into what are considered the 100 deadliest days to be on the roads in Iowa nationwide. Rose White, a spokeswoman with AAA Iowa, says the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day is when the number of deadly crashes involving teen drivers historically rise.
It's because teens are out of school, have more free time, and they drive more. And nearly 3,500 people have been killed in crashes involving teen drivers during the 100 deadliest days for the 5-year period running 2013 through 2017.
While there's much discussion about the dangers of distracted driving, the latest research finds distracted driving is the 3rd leading cause of deadly crashes involving teen drivers. The top 2 are speeding and alcohol.
Half of the teen drivers reported speeding on residential streets in the past 30 days, and nearly 40% said they sped on freeways. And despite the fact that teens cannot legally consume alcohol, 1 in 6 teen drivers involved in fatal crashes tested positive for alcohol.
While teens may make mistakes when learning to drive, White says it's important to continue educating them about safety so they can avoid reckless behaviors and put themselves and others at risk on the road. That's a look at local news. For the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher reporting.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy skies expected this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 76. Southerly winds 10 to 20 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Chance for scattered thunderstorms. Lows dip down to about 62. Chance for scattered thunderstorms tomorrow. Highs around 82. Cloudy skies. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 70.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
Yes, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. Joining me on air now is Wayne Humphreys, who is Iowa Corn Promotions Board Director, and he's a farmer down by Columbus Junction. How you doing, Wayne?
Michael, good afternoon. We finally have a day with some hazy sunshine, but people are getting out and about. The machine shed doors are open, and some good things are happening down here.
You know, I took a drive yesterday, both north and west, and there was a lot of people out in the fields planting corn. It looked like they were planting corn. There were a lot of folks out there, and some places it looked like they were replanting. They had some pretty big ponds out there, you know. I've never really seen some weather like we've had, and I was talking about this in the last hour, starting about in mid-January when it really got cold and we had a lot of snow. We've just been bombarded by bad weather, and this is no exception. We're looking for rain the rest of the week. Now, you're from Columbus Junction. Isn't that where Nate Bolton is from? Senator Bolton, isn't he from down that way?
Wow, very good.
Thank you very much. Well, he was.
If I stand up and look out the window, I can see his parents' home from here.
Oh, is that right? Well, I kind of looked at him for governor, but of course he had to drop out, and but I still think he's I think he's a good senator. Maybe you have a different opinion. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Nate Bolton. We're talking about corn and all of the different variations that corn plays in our lives. And there's really more than I can name in the next few minutes, I think, Wayne. All the way from DDGs to cornstarch to, my God, there's just so many uses for corn. I don't... Again, I couldn't name them off.
Well, Michael, you're exactly right, and I cannot name them all either, because there are something over 4,000 different products that have corn in them, not necessarily made primarily from corn, but have corn or some derivative of corn in them. A lot of grocery products, as well as animal feed and the ethanol that we use. And that's the result of a lot of research and work and investment by Iowa farmers.
Oh, without a doubt, Iowa farmers and all those who came before us. It's a remarkable process. Ethanol. Our world changed when we got ethanol, didn't it?
It did. That was a game changer for all of American farmers. a renewable, wonderful, clean resource that has helped drivers, has helped cities, has helped the United States and other countries clean up their air. It's the most affordable octane booster. It's safe compared to other combustibles that were being used for octane boosters. We've cleaned up the air in many cities, and we think it's a wonderful product. The only thing we could do better would be to have a higher inclusion rate than what we have now.
That's right. This is part of the program brought to you by the Iowa Corn Growers, and we're talking with Wayne Humphreys, who's the director of the Iowa Corn he's on the board of the Iowa Corn Promotions Board. What is your job, or what is the Iowa Corn Promotions Board? What is their mission, so to speak?
Well, our mission is to ensure profitability for Iowa corn farmers, and we do that by several methods. We promote trade. We promote the increasing utility of corn in markets around the world, as well as markets here at home. Here's the deal. Every year in Iowa and the rest of the country, we increase our productivity from corn production by a little over 2 bushels per acre per year. And with 90 million acres of corn in the United States, that means that every 5 years, people like us on the Iowa Corn Promotion Board and other state organizations have to find markets for another 1 billion bushels of corn every 5 years.
Really? Wow.
That's a gigantic task.
That is. I wonder, and I should have these figures in front of me, but a lot of times when I'm speaking with someone like you, different ideas come to my head and different questions. But I wonder how much corn production has increased in Iowa in 50 years. I bet it's a big number.
It is a big number. Recently, it's two bushels per acre per year.
Wow.
And so in 50 years, well, let's see. I suppose last year I know that we averaged just right at 200 bushels per acre. And 50 years ago would have been 1960, 1970. Yeah, probably 100 bushels per acre we've increased in 50 years.
You know, back in those days, back in 1970, I bet 125 bushels an acre wasn't bad.
That was. And if you looked at yield contest results back in those days, 150, 175 won a lot of county yield.
Oh, I remember. Absolutely. Our guest is Iowa Corn Promotions Board President Wayne Humphreys. And I'm really glad to be talking with you as you are on the promotion side of corn production here in Iowa. I started talking with farm people, whether they be Farm Bureau or pork producers, from experiences in the last couple of years. And one of the experiences, and I know my regular listeners are tired of me repeating this story, but I was on the way down to the Farm Progress show in Boone. And I was listening to satellite radio. I'm not surprisingly, I'm kind of a radio guy, and I listen to radio stations around the country. And I heard these young people talking about corn and soybean production in the Midwest. And one of the young people asked rhetorically, "What do they do with all of that grain?" They have no idea. You know, I don't know where the radio station was out of, or what. But another person said, "Well, they feed it to the livestock." And then there was a whole rant about whether we should morally feed livestock with grain. I mean, their point of view was so alien from mine, and I would assume from a lot of people in Iowa, I hope. But it occurred to me once again, it reinforced to me how important it is for Iowa corn, for soybeans, for everybody, for people like me, to explain the role of agriculture in our lives. I mean, if we don't know, and if we can't counter that argument, some people who are just clueless about agriculture, their view will take hold. And I think that's already happened. I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people outside our part of the country that are just clueless.